We get some cross-through traffic that are on the highway system, trucks, that are on the highway system and go from point A to point B, and they're going on the state highway system 392. But I would say a majority of our trucks are localized trucks coming out of gravel operations or construction operations going to another site. And those typically are the Genesis out of the west side and east, with load. Is that
Yes.
right, Rick?
Kelly, have we done an actual count of, sorry, Rick, I'm sorry,
No,
will you, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I agree, they're coming from those construction sites. I think
Have
it's
we
such a-
done a count of the trucks and the kinds of trucks and where they're coming through on?
We never paid anybody.
I did it unofficially one day, and it was interesting.
We did a count one afternoon, over an hour, and it was, we had over 110 trucks, but it was all trucks, wasn't just, construction.
And was it local and coming through?
Yeah, it was both, but I mean, the majority of it is what I said, is, the construction traffic, the sand and, other trucks.
The day I sat up there and counted, it was just about half and half. And a lot of gravel trucks. And
What we were talking about is we talked to Johnny and CEDA about redesignating 19 north of 392 up to Harmony as the 257 bypass or whatever, we call it the bypass, but we redesignated that instead of Main and then 17.
I think it's good for me, but I'm not sure if the county wanted it up there at 19 and 74, where trucks trying to make left turns on the 74. This is
His signal.
Yeah, I guess I can.
The recommendation for that was around that,
Up there at Harmony.
at 19, and the county chose not to do that. But the engineers initially said that should be around that, so could flow, make it safer. Let's you and I talk about how we get Johnny in here and have a conversation.
Okay.
And we'll bring him and talk to, and see what we can get that going again. If you have, if you okay, with anything else at
are
all?
we open to any other discussion? You may not wanna answer this, but have you heard anything about why Longmont got Smuckers?
Oh, we know. We did a whole debrief and review with them.
What?
We did a whole debrief and review with Smuckers,
We
face to
did?
face.
Mm.
Stacy did, and
Yeah.
I was, and weren't you in that meeting, Kelly and
Mhm.
we were in that meeting, so.
Yeah, they came back
Yeah.
they came back and met with Stacy and then, wanted to know if the mayor and I wanted to sit in, that was the only invited group that came in. They did a review of our process and reasoning, and, to this day, I can't really find too much benefit. I mean, they absolutely were very high on us.
Yeah, they
Um,
said that we did a great job,
Yeah.
had a great presentation.
Yeah.
You know what, in my debrief with Upstate, it was interesting because they had many meetings where they were supposed to come here, and they kept having meetings with folks they knew already, like in Boulder County. So whether there was already some kind of pre-existing relationship in that area, they claimed it came at the end, dollars for,
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
were certainly attracted to Boulder
yeah.
for some reason. We're
Yeah.
not ever, that's never been
So-
clear.
Well, where they're going in the Longmont area is a beautiful area. And it's perfect for what they were looking for, so, but I just wondered if there's anything that we lost out on, so, because of.
Water was, the uncertainty of the water cost was a little bit of one.
Excel,
Yeah, the uncertainty of getting a
Excel.
confirming price from Excel. The fact that there was not a second entrance into the site, which is Crossroads, was a little bit unsettling for them. They wanted to see a firm commitment on that, and so, at the end of the day, the other site had better access, potentially a little bit better land costs, more certainty in water, and for some reason, they liked the site.
Well, I just asked because I think we ought to be thinking about why we're losing some, as well as why we want them here.
Yeah.
So,
some of it was out of our control too, because it's in park, the industrial park. And so some of that is controlled by the owner of the industrial park, what they were talking in
And that's, well, that's kind of
negotiation.
what I was wondering too, if they had more control than what we know in that
So-
situation, so.
We can only ante up so much for that. But they said that
Okay, I just,
they
I
had
didn't wanna
a,
pursue it, but just wanted to ask what we
Yeah.
know about
we
it.
were in the top
And
run.
I didn't hear the discussion, I guess.
We were in the
Was I
top
deaf?
run and up until the end, we were the top three.
No, we didn't,
that counts
we
for
never,
I think that's
We-
pretty good.
we never really shared much with it or talked much about it, and that was just a couple weeks ago they dropped by and right before the announcement on their victory lap to Longmont. We had to sit for 24 to 48 hours while we knew they were going to Longmont. Yeah, it's a good question, it's a good question.
Longmont's been looking for something for that area for a long time, I know, because when I lived there, I know they were looking for something for that area. And it's a good area. But they have water issues too, so.
Mhm. That reminds me, I asked Stacy to get that copy of what Longmont did, and I need to make sure we got that, so we have that in our
The
hand.
final.
Yeah. 'Cause they were approving it last week.
Are they doing that by ordinance?
Can't remember,
Yeah.
there was something in the newspaper. Kim and Rick are here. Kim has been assigned by Ian to help us with a variety of things and ordinances. So there's a couple that, I'm not sure what she's got, I think I do. She's handing out that we just wanna kinda go through. These are by no means done, but this gives you a flavor of some thinking of things. And so, Kim, what do we have here in this packet?
Just a second, I'll tell you.
Good.
So, as Kelly said, about a year ago, I was asked to contact all the department heads and basically get a wish list of what they would like to see for ordinance changes and cleanup of the code and various things like that. And it was very well received. In fact, I got almost a 6-page document back on things that they would like to see changed. So after a lot of narrowing down and prioritizing, this is where we're not, this isn't final. There's still some other things that are going to come your way as we work through them with different departments. But what you have in front of you is a housekeeping ordinance, which is the big one that's on top. It's the, I've summarized it, the changes in this page sheet here. And the second one will be the change to the animal ordinance, which we'll talk about a little bit. We're declaring it to be a nuisance, so we have a little bit more enforcement power. And we're also changing some of the definitions and including, we don't want them to feed wild animals for various reasons. And the final one is a road debris ordinance that we'll get to in a second. So the first one, the housekeeping ordinance, which is, it starts off with 1-3-100 in your summary sheet. What this housekeeping ordinance is, and I found various ones throughout the US and Colorado, it's just your opportunity to go in and make the code consistent and current with current usage. So see, we still had some references to the town treasurer, trustee, the mayor pro tempore, instead of, we just refer to mayor pro tem, and the treasurer is now the director of finance. And it also, the code also had lots of duties on the town clerk that the department heads do, not the town clerk. And so we cleared those up to apply them to the appropriate department heads. So the first one, do you want to go through each one? This is entirely up to you. The big ones, the most substantive ones, that I think is like 2460A.
Yeah, why don't you explain that one?
That's in our content, jail. In order to jail in municipal court now, we have to provide a public defender to people if they were to come into court. We don't send anybody to jail, and so that way we don't have to fund a public defender. And so by doing that, we need to eliminate all references to jail, including in our contempt proceedings. So that's what this will do, is eliminate that. And it also, our code still only had the maximum fine for contempt at $1,000, when we've raised our maximum fine to $2,650. So this is just making it consistent.
Okay, if someone doesn't reappear before the court, we issue a warrant.
If
How's
they
it-
fail to appear, we can issue a bench warrant,
Is
yes.
that different than the jail language?
Yes, everything's,
Okay, because arrest doesn't mean necessarily
right,
jail.
that means if they're in custody and they come into court, or if we're sending them into custody, then we
Okay.
have to offer that to
Okay.
them. So anything that, if they wanted to set a trial and we were gonna seek jail, we
Yeah.
would have to provide them with an attorney. The next bigger one is the 2470, which I've outlined. This is changing the appointment of the municipal court clerk to comply with state statutory requirements. And because we are in-house and have been for a while, and we're not bringing contract court clerks in or anything, we propose to eliminate the requirement for the performance bond. But the state statute requires that the court clerks be appointed by the presiding municipal judge. Our code said by the town manager. So Ian and I have discussed this. We are creatively still allowing the town manager to have power, but the actual appointment comes from the municipal court clerk, or the municipal judge. So it basically says the municipal court clerk and any deputy court clerks deemed necessary and made available by the town manager shall be appointed by the presiding municipal judge. Oh, and it also used to say with approval of the town board. And we didn't know if you wanted to continue to have that kind of power, if we're letting the town manager have approval on everything. And that would have to, that would have to come before you each time to do that.
The appointment of an individual,
Right.
the clerk.
You still approve their compensation, that's still required. So each year we come in front of you for the municipal judge and court clerk compensation. But
Well, couldn't we do everything all at once?
you could,
Within
it
the
could
com-
all
if
be
we have
within
to
an
do the
appointment too.
compensation, why wouldn't we just put it all in there?
That's slipping into personnel issues.
No, it's slipping into a statutory issue, because we are a municipal court of record under the state law. So we have to, that is, home rule doesn't
Doesn't
give you
trump.
the, yeah, it doesn't trump what's in the statute, so we have to follow the statute. And it's an interesting play between the executive branch and the judicial branch, and your suggestion brings the legislative branch into it, why not? But in this case, what you wanna do is have the chief executive officer make someone available, or someone's available, for appointment. And that by your approval of the budget, and ultimately your approval of the ordinance for compensation, you control how much those folks make. The town manager controls who those people are that are available to the municipal judge, but ultimately, under the statute, the municipal judge appoints her clerk. It's statutory.
Right.
And the friction for me has always been the accountability piece.
Right,
That the clerk is accountable to the judge, in that case, as far as performance.
Right.
And so, who gives them the evaluation? Who makes them accountable? And then what happens if they're not? And then the judge doesn't care. And I guess the final straw is I had to let the board know the George is not performing their duties appropriately because we got a bad clerk, for lack of a better word. And I need your help, or somebody, you should all be aware, the court system's not so good because of that, or something like that, right? Is that the,
Or you say, you know what, this person is not working in this position, even though she's been appointed by the municipal judge. I, the town manager, will say that person is no longer available for that position. So you basically, I'm not saying you
Yeah,
defund
okay.
it, but you make that person not available anymore, and you find someone that you think
Then you deal with my friction with the judge.
And then we also added in that they shall perform all duties, the statutory languages shall perform all duties assigned by the presiding judge as delegated by law or
Yeah.
applicable court rule, and then we added in, and as approved by the town
Okay.
manager.
It's an
So-
interesting thing.
And to Ian's credit, those were his suggestions. I was inclined to leave it pretty bare bone.
Kim, do we automatically have more than one deputy county?
No, and that's
clerk?
only, currently we're having somebody come up and help because we're changing the way we handle our arraignment sessions.
Well, I just wondered
But-
grammatically whether you wanted clerk with a parentheses
Oh,
around
did
the S, clerk or clerks, you know, that,
I see what you're saying.
because you're
Around the
saying,
S,
it looks like
Yeah.
you're automatically gonna have
yeah.
more than one deputy.
Chances are, we're only gonna have one municipal court clerk. And only on occasion will we have an assistant come up, but they will be technically the deputy court clerks.
I think you could make it correct by just putting a
I
parentheses
will.
around the S.
Got it.
Is there any friction between, potential friction between a town manager and municipal judge in the town manager only makes one person available?
Well, that's what we're trying to set up here, is to give the town manager the ability to say, this person is available to you
Right.
for appointment. So even though the town manager is not making the appointment, he
You're
is
essentially
saying,
picking the
what
person.
he's saying to municipal
Right.
judges, you can't just pick anybody.
Yeah, it's gotta be
It's-
from our
It's
pool of
some,
people.
yeah, it's somebody that is under the town manager's supervision.
Okay.
And that's how we give the town manager some control over.
Okay, I see what you're doing.
The fact is, you believe that we're not in compliance with state statute, and we need to be in
Yes,
state.
gotcha.
The
compliance.
existing code doesn't
Mm-mm,
apply.
it does not.
Does the same clerk work for the alternative judge?
Yes, if
Yeah,
that
but
were.
the presiding judge is
So
who
the presiding
appoints.
judge,
Yeah.
but there's
So the
one clerk.
alternative judges have to, they just go by with whoever the presiding judge has already selected.
The rest of them on this page look like they're just things that need to be done.
They are.
I mean, changing words and,
Changing town treasurer to
Verbiage.
director of finance, 2630B and 2820B. It was discovered that the code language and the bylaws didn't match, so this is changing it to match the bylaws of each board. The mayor pro tempore to pro tem.
Any particular reason on that?
The charter says we have a mayor pro tem.
They're the same thing.
They are the
They
same
are the
thing.
same thing. And this was Patty. She went through and picked everything
I
out,
understand for
so-
consistency's sake, so it's just for
Right, yeah.
consistency's sake,
Yes.
okay, that makes more sense.
So-
I just wanted to
You
decide
know,
what
if we're
what I
doing
called
one,
you, Miles.
one big ordinance,
What's
it's
the
like
miles?
this.
Temporary.
Looks like a tempore. Give them the shred.
Now I wanna go for sushi.
Shrimp tempore.
Now, Title VI is a little different, and and Ian and I didn't see eye to eye on, that's the business license ones.
Oh,
We didn't see eye to eye, so we had a whole bunch of red lines which got struck, and rewrites, and so this is kind of the bare bones, and so he still may squawk.
I
But,
have no issue with it.
But, this is,
I'm standing down.
so,
As long as the town clerk and the sales tax department are happy with the language in this, I'm fine.
the first ones that are listed, which are 6, 3, 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 90, 100, and 110, there's no significant changes. Some have no changes at all, because that was part of the original red line, where we were gonna change the entire code. But some of them were some minor grammatical changes where we inserted like to the town of Windsor, or just something, it was just a style issue there. Again, 6330 just changes town clerk to director of finance, 50 does the same thing. 6370, right now, everybody who applies for a business license, under the calendar year procedure, they all renew on January 1, which puts the finance department into, they tell me that it makes it crazy down there, and they preferred to have it happen on an annual basis. So you apply on March 1st for your business license, you renew it again on March 1st the next year.
So it's kind of a big one.
Yeah, that's
That's,
kind of
that's, a-
big.
that's a little bit of an operational change.
That
I
is,
think
Yeah,
they
because that
will
hasn't
like-
been like that.
no, that's what they requested on that one.
So what happens, so right now, a large percentage are January first.
Mhm.
So when this goes into effect, what will happen?
It really now will affect the new applications,
So
so,
we'll just start
I-
with a, so when it gets to effect, say, 2 months out, somebody comes in June,
right,
that's when
Then that
we'll
one
keep
will-
the bunch.
right,
The
cause
batch
they
is
all
January.
renew now, so
Yeah.
that's.
Will they be
that's-
sending notifications to everybody?
Well, they'll
to
keep-
remind
they'll
them?
keep-
Because
I
I
don't
don't think
think
they
it'll-
currently do.
I don't think it'll matter to the people who are already renewing on January 1 anymore.
They'll keep it that way.
It'll
So
just
if
be
you're
for
a
new
new business in
applications.
June, let's say you adopt this before June first this year, and you come in for June,
Okay.
your new date will be June instead of
Okay.
prorated January,
Gotcha.
and be with the whole batch. And so I guess over time, a long period of time, it'll be better for the finance.
But if I am somebody who comes in June, I think I'm gonna need a reminder notification.
To, yeah,
Because
Well, that's
otherwise
something
it's
we
not
can
a natural, you know,
right.
right now it's a natural kind of end of the year,
Right.
you
Let me
know,
verify that.
December.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know there's no notifications for that, but it's just kind of a,
Mhm.
but if you got, every business has a different something, they're not always gonna remember when they pull
Just a
that
little
license
postcard would be nice.
Yeah,
or something.
Is there not an online option for renewal?
Not,
they are going that way, yes,
Yeah.
if they haven't.
It just seems like none of this would even matter.
Right.
All that somebody has to do is review the app.
yeah, cause like even like with your Secretary of State, you get a renewal notice for you to, you sign up your,
But you also get an email too. so.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you get an email notice.
Is there any problem with the revenue source happening that way because it's not all coming in at the first of the year and it's gonna be trickling out throughout the year?
It's $10
It's
an
$10.
application.
I just am asking.
I mean,
I'm
unless
just
you wanna
bringing it up 'cause it's-
raise that, but that'd be a whole nother, set. And I think finance may come to, they've talked to me about, they wanna do a whole nother set of changes, and so we may have this discussion about some of that later.
Okay.
Uh,
Is this
another.
next one a big change?
The next one's a pretty big change in the sense that currently we do not have trailers technically defined as an inoperable vehicle or an abandoned motor vehicle. However, current practices, that we still cite them for those if they don't have current plates or they've got flat tires or things like that. So this is truly a cleanup to get it in operation with how we operate, to get it consistent.
Kim, I would probably have a question of Rick about having written the Water Valley covenants for 2 years, the trailer can be a problem too if you don't have a definition of how long it can be, because it's hard to stop what I want to say, hauling trailer, and then maybe they get trailers at 26, 30 feet long, you know, and they park them, and we had a lot of trouble with that, so we finally had to put a definition of how long it can be, or not even, just plain trailer, if a trailer can't be there. So
We have an ordinance that
We have that.
It's already
defines
in
the
place.
length.
it's already,
Yeah, there's different trailers, there's, you know, camp trailers are not the same as a, flat trailer.
Or snowmobile.
Or snowmobile.
well, I just wondered, because we ran into a lot of problem with that, so.
When is it considered something that has to be moved? That if it doesn't have a current license?
Flat tires, it's inoperable, no current tags.
And that's in code.
If it has current tags and the tires are good, it can sit there and not move
Not a
for-
trailer.
It
can
camp-
sit in your-
Camp trailers can. I know the little pop-up trailers, they are not included in our ordinance for that, so.
There's a minimum length above which you can't leave it for more than so many days.
Oh,
So if it exceeds a certain length, then it's subject to
Then it can
regulation
have a
whether it's
like-
operable or not.
For
Yes.
24
This
hours,
applies
4 times a
to
month.
anything that doesn't have the current plates or a flat, that can't be moved, whether it's 10 feet long or 50 feet long.
HOA.
Or if
and-
the axle's gone, you know, something like that.
It can't be
No.
moved anyway, it's just
Right.
junk.
So we finally followed the towns when and we felt good about that, so.
HOA and metro districts can be more
More
restricted.
strict.
As far as their fines within the HOA, there's no rule that they have to come in compliance with us.
So they can be more restrictive than.
Yes.
But that's just for fines and stuff for the HOA.
They have to for storage.
So, probably have about 20 minutes here, so.
Um,
Anything else on this one much?
No, not really. The 8350 just amends it to reflect the current codes. And the other one's very clerical.
So let me stop there,
Okay,
and ask the board, you've seen a little bit of summary, would you like to, well, we can come back to this at the end. I guess I can ask what you want to do with these 3 ordinances, but think about if this is something you'd like to see for consideration, we can have it ready sometime for consideration, so I'll ask at the end of this.
the next one is addressing the feeding of wild animals and some other matters. What these show are, in red is what the changes are. Our animal ordinance needs to be tightened up. This is just touching the tip of the iceberg of our animal ordinance. However, our fowl, what I did was I researched what fowl is defined as, and most definitions include waterfowl within fowl. And so then I found the definition for waterfowl and just threw it in there. Of course, this excludes pet birds. And then I just struck that language for domestic fowl, because we're gonna not use that language anymore. We also are creating wild or exotic animal or animals as a definition now, meaning any animal whose possession requires a license from the Colorado Division of Parks and Wildlife, or any authorization by federal or state law, including but not limited to, and this is just a sampling of animals, bears, any feline species other than ordinary domesticated house cats, skunks, poisonous or venomous, amphibians or reptiles, raccoons, porcupines, rabbits other than domestic rabbits, badgers, or other similar species, except ferrets or minks. I'm not sure why that is. Then deer, elk, antelope, any wolf, coyote, or fox, or any species of non-human primate, and waterfowl. These are definitions. Yeah, that's a good one. Then 7.520. This is probably the substantive part. And the keeping of animals, fowl, and beasts prohibited. And then I created it for teeth for enforcement purposes. And we need to really declare it as a nuisance. Otherwise, we don't have any way to go in and correct the problem if there's no other way to do it. So what this does is it adds feeding. So it's unlawful for any person to keep, harbor, feed, maintain, or allow to run or fly.
Are we criminalizing bird feeders?
No, this doesn't have anything to do with bird feeders. This is for wild, actually, did I not put that in there?
I thought you had an exception.
I thought I did.
I didn't see an exception.
If I didn't, I better put that in there.
Well, parakeets
But
are
anyways.
some of birds, that didn't say that.
Yeah.
Cause you got
Yeah.
cardinals, orioles,
Not here.
Yeah, I can
You
find
know,
it,
actually-
if I don't have it in there.
not cardinals, but orioles is one.
I used to have it in there, so,
I thought people
It's a
could,
good
I'll
catch.
find it.
Exception.
Yeah.
I thought people could have bees and honey making operation.
We can't.
They can,
It does.
we're not, this,
So it
that's a
could be-
holdover to the old
Yeah.
code. I suppose we could
The
take
last
that out
code.
since we
Okay.
address it elsewhere,
Could
but,
be the whole-
so, and then we declare it to be a nuisance, and then we define nuisance. But what nuisance does is allows us to go in and abate the problem if it needs to be, if we need to remove whatever's going on, we can go in and do it, then we can charge whoever may be responsible for it for the cost of the abatement, and they'll get a ticket in a municipal court as well. 7530 required a rabbit permit, and that's never that I know of has ever taken place in order to even have a rabbit. So, and that's what part of the exceptions. So that was in C. So we just struck the permit language. We talked about getting rid of the entire rabbit thing, which we talked about it, and we figured if you start allowing more than one rabbit, then you're gonna have lots of lots of rabbits, and you may end up having more of a nuisance of domestic rabbits than getting let go too. But that could be looking at worst case scenario, and so that's just the reasoning that Rick and I went through when we were discussing it. Then the bees and chicken hens are governed by other articles. And then the F and G are talking about, this article is not applicable to any prohibited activity, such person holds a valid license for such activity. And if they're doing it according to a rehabilitation license. And that's where I can add in the, it doesn't prohibit, not applicable to,
Bird feeders?
yeah.
For bats, should that be clarified as well?
Now, what about the, chickens or the hen thing or whatever that we?
Those are covered under separate ordinances.
So that's right.
Just, we're talking about animals and all that stuff.
You know, it's like people, oh, look at that fox, isn't he cute, let's give him some food. Or look at those raccoons, aren't they so cute? The next thing you know, you're gonna have, they've invited their cousins to come over, and
But currently, you're only allowed one rabbit?
that's what the current code says, and that's what it's always been. So that,
So you're just striking the permitted of that one rabbit?
right, but yeah, we can do
How
whatever
much is it enforced?
is wished for that,
You don't get any complaints on it.
Yeah.
When the rabbits
Cause
start
I
springing
can,
out
I
of the
can name the
windows,
home
then.
that have many.
Well, I would ask how many people are actually
Use the
aware,
water valley.
frankly.
but, right.
I bet not.
How many people actually have more than one rabbit and the town is just not aware because it's not a nuisance?
Right.
Right, and I kinda doubt that the police officers are gonna go door to door and do a rabbit patrol.
I'd be of the mind of striking the whole thing, but that's, I might be in a minority on that.
Well, this gives you, if there was a nuisance, if they did have 15, 20 rabbits eating.
Is there actually enforcement
Huh?
then
there? Is
you-
it declared a nuisance if you have more than
Yeah,
one
on
rabbit?
C, 7530
Right, so
C.
Caleb problem, you have a tool.
Right,
Is
that
the
was-
other one.
Gotcha.
That
How
would
do you need
fall
approval
within,
just to
in
be able
case
to
you-
enforce it?
Right.
There's no declaration of a nuisance if it's more than one?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's effectively,
well, I guess you could say
Unenforceable,
rabbits other than domestic rabbits, and then back here, we allow one pet rabbit, so, I could clean that up also, if you,
We don't want one rabbit in the yard.
I could say rabbits in excess of one per household, but,
They might be dead or something.
So bees are separate, but it's also listed.
Yeah,
under
yeah.
separate.
a dead rabbit.
I'm less concerned about domesticated rabbits than I am the wild
That's
rabbits.
what we don't want to do.
Right.
The West Sea rabbits.
Everybody-
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
Well, they feed themselves, or they don't feed on themselves, but they, oh yeah, they
Right.
feed themselves, I guess.
that's a good catch.
And there are some people feed
My
rabbits.
goodness, we have so many rabbits
Well,
running around our house.
Yeah.
They burrowed into our, like, we have a fence and blocks and stuff on the way in and attack our garden.
Do you have a bow and arrow?
Bees, can't you?
You can.
Might have other
I
things.
know
I've
some-
seen a ton of rabbits, I've seen a ton of rabbits going in and out of the eat now.
But see, we
I
can
know
suggest
some
that
issues.
too,
I think there's a
so keep
law
your
against-
bees governed by
Yeah,
this
that's
article
what I-
and
I know some
chicken.
issues.
Okay, so that's wild animals.
Yeah,
Keep on
that's
going,
wild
Ken,
animals.
next one, next item.
And then the last one, there's no red line because
This is
it's,
wild animals.
it's a brand new creation. And there's been complaints by several about the mud and clay and things that are getting tracked onto the streets and or rocks dropped onto the streets, and what can we do about it? So we creatively came up with this, tracking litter or mud on the streets or alleys prohibited, which would make it, if the officers catch them, or if somebody sees it and is willing to sign a complaint, we can go after that driver and issue a citation. And no person shall drive or move any truck, trailer, golf car, or other vehicle within the town unless such vehicle or trailer is so constructed or loaded as to prevent any load, contents, or litter from being blown or deposited upon any street, alley, or other public place, and, or in a manner which causes the accumulation of mud, dirt, sticky substance, litter, or foreign matter. What this really is, this really could be tied to storm drainage, because we're really protecting the stormwater systems when but if you're talking about the construction sites, as they're driving out of there and leaving all this junk, and then water, a rainstorm comes in, and then all of that silt and everything's being flushed down our stormwater system. So we are also going to start addressing this in development agreements as well. But, this is, this would also encompass somebody's driving down the road and stuff flies out of the bed of the pickup, or you see those trucks that are always dropping stuff as they're driving along. I mean, I know there's state statutes that would cover it, but this is a municipal one that we have, our officers then would have probable cause just to pull them
Is
over.
this, how close is this to state code?
It is not, it doesn't mirror state code.
How much discussion did you have, Kim, about time limit of how long can it be on the street? A driver comes out of a lot with mud on the truck, he's gonna take that load someplace, and then who's gonna come right behind him? Is there gonna be a time limit? I mean, I know, working with Water Valley, it's a big problem, and we have covenants, and we have codes, and we, we're very strict with them, but yet, how do you follow them coming out of a lot without some kind of a time limit?
I don't know what you mean by time limit. If they're coming out of a lot tracking mud, their duty is to be clean before they
But I
track
mean, are
on
they
the
gonna come right
streets.
behind them?
Is who
No
gonna
way.
come right behind them?
They're not gonna do
Someone
that
has to
under
report it.
any
It
circumstance.
would have to be reported, or an officer would have to see it. Somebody would have to be
I
willing
mean,
to
but
sign a
you fight
complaint.
developers constantly, and we're gonna have so much building going on. I think there needs to be a time limit, then give them a chance to come back and clean it up, or else it's not valid.
I don't think we're-
I've been
think-
there.
Let me talk, I think we're talking about something else, right,
Yeah.
Rick?
Exactly.
A different
Yeah,
circumstance.
I think Kim had said earlier that portion be addressed with
We're gonna,
the building.
we're gonna start
This is
addressing
good.
those in development agreements with developers, what their duties are, and what consequences may happen if they don't clean up after themselves.
This is trucks coming from other locations and in development. So why don't you explain that, those?
It's basically anybody, if you get somebody that's been out mudding and they wanna track mud through town, spread it, we can stop them on observation and issue the driver a citation for that. Places coming from out of town, that have like a construction site, and they're dragging dirt and mud into town, we can stop them from citing for that. If they're dropping rocks, we can cite them for that.
Well,
Process.
and Rick, I don't wanna argue the point, but I know when it says or alleys prohibited, it's just something that you fight constantly with. I mean, we have a big development in Water Valley,
Well,
and I fought it constantly as a manager. And there's nothing you can do about it, except say to the developer, it needs to be cleaned up, but we gave them a time limit. And then, if it wasn't done, then we fined them. And they
I'm not
have
sure
a
I'm
choice.
comfortable with this ordinance, because it doesn't say it's just to developers or commercial. What if you're, a guy, you come in from a farm one night and you got a mud truck, you don't have time to go run it through the wash, is this gonna pertain to somebody like that?
Yes.
Well, it's the way it's written, it would.
So, I'm not sure, this is kind of starts intruding, I think, too much, and then it really is only gonna happen with everybody tattling on everybody. Because
Yeah.
police can't be everywhere, and so now you're gonna have your neighbors wanting to,
I
make
just-
sure that they get you, and they're gonna catch you with your muddy vehicle or your truck the next
All it
time.
takes is one camping trip and.
So,
you got one
unless this is
vehicle.
a
I
way
just think it
huge,
needs some more work.
bigger issue than what I'm aware of. I mean, I understand what we're trying to do, but I'm not that comfortable.
Kelly, did
with
this happen up in my neighborhood where there,
There is that incident in Highland Meadows,
yeah,
and we're gonna address that through development agreements, where we
Okay.
had a truck, they were trying to move dirt from Highland Meadows out to Timber.
yeah, they were taking Timnath, so.
Yeah, and it was all tracking mud everywhere, and they did address it. It was a continuous incident for about.
So
2
if the issue was pretty much caused by development, and you're gonna be addressing it with development, can we handle it that way versus an ordinance townwide that affects
Well,
everybody else?
it's also oil and gas. I mean,
That's-
I've seen the oil and gas.
That's the
And
ones that
cement-
we see.
Cement trucks.
That's what we see is the oil and gas trucks mostly, that are the
Sand,
ones,
sand gravel trucks.
I mean, is that what the
That's
most?
primarily what you're looking at.
And we
I-
can't tie them to a development agreement. because they're not, a lot of them aren't even
Right,
within
right.
town.
Problem is though, that the way this is currently drafted is that pretty much everyone gets caught up in it. I think that's way too far.
You think it's
Is
too
there a
broad?
difference between
Way too-
commercial vehicle,
Can you differentiate?
right, based on commercial, because it could be sand and gravel, it could be oil and gas, could be development versus somebody who went camping?
I don't think it, just because we were to pass this means, just because an officer sees it, they have to write a ticket for it.
The issue
This
is.
is a discretionary item, and if they see something that's flagrant and, you know, is worthy of a ticket by virtue of this ordinance, then I think they should have that power, because I think it's a big nuisance. And I think we are protecting our storm drainage by having something like
I
that.
think there's gonna be some compromise, because I like your point. I can see
Yeah,
neighbors,
but I'm-
neighbors with cell phones, take a picture.
Yeah, what is too much?
Do we want our
What is
police
too much?
officers tracking down muddy trucks?
Well, would they be though, or is it just if they see something that's?
Observation.
I mean, I think you're gonna have more people complaining, like, isn't that what happened in your neighborhood?
Yes.
It was more neighbors complaining
But isn't that why we would be
and
doing this?
creating, but if they complain, isn't there a way we can handle it now, or we can't do anything about it if they complain?
And in the neighborhood, was the complaint from commercial vehicles or
Mhm.
residential people?
It was a commercial effort.
So we just want to focus on the commercial aspect of it.
Well, I think we're gonna get this piece in the future development agreements, very similar to this, so we can address it with the development, I think, in the future.
But would that address the sand and gravel and oil and gas industry?
The pass-throughs, that's what you're having a hard time right now.
Exactly. This would address those vehicles that
This
are not originating in Windsor, but are coming through Windsor and leave the deposit and
This
stuff.
way.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
And it needed to be observations.
But in light of the comprehensiveness of this,
Mhm.
do you have a comment on that? Why did we add golf cars and everything else in there? Just,
The golf cars were added because I have been informed by people at Water Valley that they've had issues with golf cars driving through the lake and or into mud, and then they track it all over the streets as they're crossing over.
They drive on the stupid golf course, and it's
Uh-huh.
muddy, after
So,
a
that's
snowstorm.
why-
or-
Yeah, that's why that's there. I mean, they have golf cart paths.
So that's a
that would
complaint
say
that you've had.
I have had, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, this just starts going into down a line
I
that
can-
I don't feel comfortable with.
I'm comfortable with
about.
chopping it up and limiting it as long as we're not going to run into a, this is broad and it encompasses everybody, I admit that. But I don't want to have it be
So narrow.
Yeah, so narrow
So
that
narrow, but it
we're not addressing things that we probably should. And I do think it's officer discretion. I mean, they're not gonna go looking for people who are tracking mud. If somebody's blowing mud onto their windshield, I can guarantee that person will get,
Well, this was all devised because of the big offenders, which is oil and
right.
gas and
Well, the
development.
guys who are out of our development agreements, we don't have any control over them.
And let me just ask this, Ian, we don't know this question yet, and maybe we should wait on this one. Because if you're hanging your hat, we're hanging our hat a little bit on 3 paragraphs about stormwater.
That's a significant portion
I
of that.
understand,
It is.
but this group is gonna get the pleasure over the next 9 months to deal with stormwater ordinance.
That's more.
MS4, which you're not gonna, some of it you're not gonna necessarily like too much, but
Right.
you're gonna have to do. I'm gonna advise you right now, there's not gonna be much discretion in that one. There might be elements of this in that, and I'm wondering if we should hold the stormwater blaming piece of this until we have the stormwater discussion to see what that's gonna look like.
I remember looking through the 68 pages of
Yeah.
that MS4 thing, and I think there was a fair emphasis on construction sources.
But it didn't talk about general,
It
Right.
didn't talk about just passers-by, passers-through.
well, I'm hearing a little bit of concern about the breadth and scope of this.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I'm kind of wanting to, as I'm thinking about it further tonight, wait on this one, to see where we go with the stormwater ordinance.
Okay.
And
Kim
that
and
might
Kelly,
help address this too.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
could I
there's
bring you a
other.
copy of what we did at Water Valley?
Sure.
I think we were pretty happy the way we finally changed it to control it more than what we were getting. So I'd be happy to bring
Mhm,
it, you can
that'd
look
be
at
fine,
it
yeah.
and see, because we were satisfied with it after we changed it.
So I'm hearing some interest of trying to address if it makes some sense, and I agree, and I think a lot of, as I'm thinking through this, I think a lot of that, we talked about the biggest ones are either gonna be patent development agreements, probably through our new
Right.
ordinance that you're gonna be looking at for stormwater permit. And when we get to that stage, we can see if this very specific issue of the passing through is not covered, and if it isn't, we'll come back to you and say, that's still outstanding, we may wanna address this.
Can't we put something in our CUG about I think there is
Yeah.
already something.
Yeah, tracking
Isn't there
pad.
enforcement in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is tracking pad and.
Okay, cause that's my biggest
Yeah.
concern. This does feel like a little bit of
Yeah.
a stretch right now.
Okay,
But the oil and gas is a huge concern, and
Yeah.
I think it is in the CUG, so.
it is.
I'm thinking about the recreational stuff, because my instinct
That's
was
on my
to
list.
don't worry about that, but suppose I've got 2 4-wheelers and every weekend they're muddy and I take the hose and I'm washing down the mud into the,
Well, that's gonna get covered in your stormwater ordinance. I
that would still
think.
work with it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get
Okay.
addressing that.
Okay,
I think there's gonna be parts of stuff that we, are kinda used to doing now in this town that we may not be able to do
that's
as
what
much.
grow, you know, it's not a small rule.
Right.
Well, let me say this, it's a needed effort, and I think it's something we do need to do and correct it the way it's being
Yeah.
done now, so, but I think we need to work on it.
Okay, that one we're gonna table. And we'll keep on, we're gonna stormwater ordinance, we'll come back to this conversation, we'll get to that. How about the cleanup ordinance? Would you be willing to get that going, or do you wanna spend more time at a formal work session looking at that, or?
The cleanup language
Like,
mainly?
yeah, the cleanup language ordinance.
I think that one was pretty general,
So-
so like everybody's.
Just to clarify, the purpose for cleaning up the section regarding the municipal court clerk is to come in with compliance with
The state
state
statute.
code?
So line up with state law.
Okay. Seems
And I mean, and
reasonable.
again, if we put this ordinance together, you'll have a chance to ask all those questions again, if you don't like
Yeah.
something,
Sure.
we can amend it
I mean,
and
it
not
seems-
do it.
And you don't think we should go down that path in where we, since we have to approve the salary, but we don't approve the person?
You've got the town manager between you and that
Yeah,
that
which
decision.
makes,
But we essentially
sense.
do approve that person through salary.
Through the budget.
I know, but
you
it makes no
approve-
sense to me.
But, well,
I mean, all we do is say, they tell us who it is, and then we say yes or no to the dollar amount.
That's how the whole,
That's all the personnel.
that's
That's
how
how it's
personnel
always-
works with them.
Right, we only hire 2 people, right?
Free.
3.
3.
Three. Well, but we do oversee the entire budget.
Right, we do.
So we do.
Right, so that's our control is the budget.
Okay.
You want to be careful about looking at the personnel issues.
Wild animals,
Wild humans.
Really upset about
I
losing
think
my
with the,
pet porcupine.
let's get the bird, we gotta get the birds addressed,
Yeah,
bird
birds,
feeder
yeah.
I'll put,
and
I'll,
such.
I'll make the
But would
fees,
you
look at that's
be
okay.
willing to put that up for discussion? on
We
your-
aren't, we aren't creating any new chicken controversies
Nope.
with this at all?
Not that we're aware of.
yeah.
Are
Let's
there-
just put it that way.
No, that's.
We're not trying to.
Desperately trying not to. Talk about-
And same with our,
We don't know what we're quite
Yeah.
creating until it happens.
no,
I
the,
brought it up earlier, we breezed right past it, now we brought it back up.
That's not even in.
I just wanna be extra
Right.
sure here.
Yes.
There are
Um,
some incentives.
Well, we can raise
in
chickens
certain
now.
Sorry.
areas.
I'm trying to think, are there any other forms of, well, never mind, we only legalized chicken ownership.
And bees.
And
And
bees.
bees.
And rabbit.
I did
And
not see
rabbits.
that. I
And,
did
and
not see
speaking of that,
rabbits.
Christian found some, a
I
couple
didn't see
references to
pigs in
bees,
there,
and those,
and I
I
had a
scratched
neighbor
those
that
out.
dogs and
but-
pigs.
I
No
had,
chitlins,
I had a neighbor who had a pet pig.
No alligators.
Illegals.
alligators.
Or goats.
Do we want to get into prairie dogs while we're at it?
They are declared an enemy of the state. Or meant to be destroyed.
Although, just a little
Never seen it.
Okay, can we, you think about it, can we get it scheduled and start so it happens?
I think this one seems reasonable.
Well, you might come up to a different conclusion when we get to front of you, but we'll see.
I think I'm
What are you
pretty
gonna be
predictable,
adding to it?
Kelly.
I don't know, there might be something you think of, that's good
Might be
thought.
Like my pet porcupine.
Like an animal
Is
test.
this
I'm
a
gonna
place
bring
where it
them-
says six
All of a sudden, he's
hens,
gonna wanna have
only
two
6
rats.
hens,
Yeah, I
and
know.
no roosters?
Yes, this is that part.
Yeah.
We're not
Is that
touching,
part of it? I didn't read it. I didn't read it.
no, we're not touching any of that.
Is there a?
Kristen was wearing a bad one.
Is it-
I know.
That's not
I know, I think there's.
Six
Legal
cans,
issue.
no
He kept bringing up Spike.
is the law.
Future
Somebody
board
speeds
meetings, next week we have no work session, President's Day.
Six 6:30 AM, you can shoot Brad.
February 27th,
However, we have planning commission.
you do have next
Wednesday.
Joint session Wednesday night.
That's this Wednesday, right?
That's this Wednesday. That is this
I gotta
Wednesday.
miss that.
I won't be there for that. You're not gonna be there either?
No, I'm not gonna be there.
It's okay, I mean, it's just keeping a loop up, and you can go back and watch it, or whatever you wanna do.
So where is that meeting? Here?
Upstairs.
Board change.
Upstairs.
Is that gonna be on the front page now? Town board member has his pet porcupine.
The 27th, we'll have a special event,
I
a
want to
work
see.
session follow-up, and then March 6th, we probably will be talking about economic
You
development.
could have some fun with this one.
I don't want this to be on the front page, that'd be kinda fun.
Last week.
Could you see the town, this guy,
Gotcha.
the town could get rid of that.
6 o'clock on
I
Wednesday.
feel like the people would support me.
He started messing with people's pets.
The one who ran against.
One thing.
Mike,
Porcupine.
Ah,
And remember, he kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah,
initially, I
yeah,
thought it was settled, and I said, maybe.
I can see the head.
Sure, it's Bartholomew?
At the Board of Adjustment.
Go ahead and send it out.
Yeah, Bart the porcupine.
Okay, you ready to, current board, we can do it here,
Yeah, because we only have one item on there, don't we?
and Dean and this here too. Yes.
No, afterwards, I wanna.
Okay. So, if you bring in, could you get, Dean to come on in?
Yeah.
No, let me sign this quick, unless somebody else.
Oh, man. I'd just like to point out that I was up at like 4 o'clock this morning to drive my wife to the airport, so that's why I'm a
Is it
little
under
punchy over here.
like some?
This thing's
You'll
the
get 4 a.m.
3.7,
every day?
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Early?
Well, yeah, I mean, once I have a kid, I guess I won't be sleeping anymore, period, so,
It's a fair argument, I don't know that I agree with it, but.
I just sleep through the
Yeah.
night.
yeah,
You discover how much.
Can't find it, this packet.
yeah.
Right.
Under,
Dated that.
How's it going over there?
Yeah, I gotta fly out, I'm flying tomorrow morning, thankfully it's a little later,
fine.
but I got my wife
No
to the
problem.
airport, her flight was at 8 this morning, so.
Do we have to call the meeting to order and do all
What
that?
time did you get?
Yes.
Did you leave to get to the
Okay.
airport?
We'll call the